Hello, and welcome to Art with Miss Michelle. Today we're going to draw a picture of a bird. So this is our feathered animal drawing. Birds are the only living animal that I can think of with feathers. So for this project you'll need a couple pieces of paper or a sketchbook, a picture of a bird to look at, and something to draw with, so I have colored pencils. Birds are very interesting because there is such a range of bird anatomy. So if you think about different types of birds, you have anywhere from a hummingbird, which is really tiny and fast and zips all around. You have flamingos with really long necks and legs, penguins that are kind of chubby little birds that don't fly, ducks, geese, I mean just so many different kinds with long, really long beaks, short beaks, fat birds, thinner birds, really short leg birds, long leg birds, and everything in between. But the thing they do have in common, they have feathers and beaks, and they are pretty fun to draw. So I have a varied thrush here. I'm feeling inspired by this bird because I've seen a lot of them flipping over leaves in my garden looking for little bugs and things to eat. And I do think that birds, at least most birds, are a little bit easier to draw from the profile view. Now if you have something like an owl, I would recommend drawing it straight on. But I think a lot of birds are going to be easier from this profile, and you can have birds that are sitting, resting, swimming, flying, so whatever you prefer, you can find your bird picture and we will get started. Okay, so before I start drawing my bird, I'm going to practice drawing a feather. So feathers are pretty simple shaped. They have their quill. This one's actually, you can see they're all hollow, but this one's clear, so it's kind of cool. And then this part gets a little bit thinner as it goes up through the feather. And then it has these little barb pieces on the sides, and these are actually really cool because they have little hooks on them, so they can usually hook together and stay all together, but each one is its own separate piece. You can kind of see when they get to the bottom they're a little fuzzier and don't stick together as well, but they're honestly kind of similar to the shape of a leaf and the veins of the leaf. But I'm going to start by drawing the middle part, and then these little pieces, if I start from the top, they all kind of stick together. I'm gonna make it a little bit darker of a color because if I use white, it obviously won't show up on my white paper. But then each piece, I can just make a little line, and the lines kind of stick up towards the top of these. And if I just kind of draw them next to each other, all going the same direction. And this one actually, the barbs are a little bit long on this side of the feather and they're really short on the top, but depending on the feather it might be the other way around, or they might be a little bit more even on both sides. So they kind of, I'll slow down a little bit, they kind of curve up and go all next to each other in a nice pattern, really close together. And then I can also pay attention to the shape, like, of the outside. So this is kind of rounded, this is a little bit more straight on this side. And they're actually pretty fun to draw, and I can go kind of fast. They don't have to be perfect, but this just kind of gives me an idea of the shape. And you can see they're kind of pointing towards the top on both sides. And then they might get a little bit shorter towards the bottom, and I'm gonna have some room at the bottom of my feather where there's no barbs, and this would be the part that attaches to the bird's body. Okay, So I have a pretty nice shape here. I'm pretty happy with that. That's just kind of a fun little warm-up exercise. And then I can move on to my varied thrush. So when I draw birds like this from the profile, pretty much anything besides an owl, I think I prefer to do this view. I like to start from the beak because it's just a nice starting point. So before I start drawing, I want to kind of plan out where things are going to go on my paper. So for this guy or girl, the beak is kind of in the top corner. And then I have plenty of room for my body, tail, and legs. So this has kind of a long skinny beak, and a bird's beak is its nose and mouth. So I'm going to see the line in the middle is where it opens, and then usually they go a little bit inside the head and come to a little bit of a point and have a little nostril. And then I can outline my head. So the head is pretty round on top. It's a little bit straighter on the bottom. This one doesn't really have a big neck, obviously, like a flamingo would have a really long neck. Like I said, there's all different types of birds. I might switch to a goldish yellow color because he has some yellow feathers down here. So I'm just gonna outline the body. It looks pretty round on the bottom. I would say this is kind of an average bird, not too fat, not too thin. And then the top is it's pretty straight. It has a bit of a curve to it. And then a lot of birds have kind of a curved shape for their wing. And then the feathers actually stick out a little bit past their body. And then if I take a close look at this, I can see some longer feathers towards the end of the wing. And then I have a row of shorter feathers, and then some even shorter feathers on the part of the wing that meets the body. And those kind of continue onto the back and the head. Then on the stomach, I see a lot of shorter, more rounded feathers. And then the tail has really long feathers, and that's going to be pretty common on whatever type of bird you're drawing, the long tail feathers. So what I can do for that is just draw some kind of fast, long lines. And then if I want to make some rows of feathers on here. So of course I'm not going to draw every feather. That would take forever and be a little ridiculous. But if I just draw some outlines, it's going to give the impression that I'm drawing all the feathers. So if I draw a couple rows on the wing and then add some of the different shapes that I see, some of the longer feathers, that's going to really give the texture an illusion of the feathers. Of course, I'm going to add the eye, and it has this glimmer of white in the middle. And then when I color this in, I might want to get a couple different yellows. If your bird's blue, you might want some lighter or darker blues. So kind of like with the snake, if I want to do some feather patterns and then color it in with a slightly different color, that's going to give me a nice texture. And these don't have quite as much of a pattern as the snake scale, so if I just kind of do some straight lines or rounded lines, depending how they look, I don't have to be as quite precise with my pattern. And then I can color it in, and I do see like quite a big variety of shading. So there's some pretty dark yellow places. I might even want to blend some orange or brown in there. and then some really light highlight places, so I could add some white or some really light yellow. I'm going to pay attention to any distinctive markings, like these markings on the head and wings. And then I've been using kind of a grayish black color. I might even be able to blend some like really, really dark blue in here. But if you notice, like this color is much darker than this color, probably just because of how the light is hitting it. So if I add some shadows and highlights, that's going to give it a lot of dimension. I'm also going to notice the feet, the knees bend backwards, and then it has kind of thin toes. It has toes in front and back of its feet. So I'm just going to start adding some details, and then I can work on coloring it. And then for some of these really fuzzy feathers, like on the belly, I can almost make like lines that look kind of like the fur to get that fuzzier texture, because birds actually have different kinds of feathers on all different parts of their body, kind of like we talked about the different kinds of scales on different parts of reptiles' bodies. Some feathers might, like the longer ones on their wings, will help them fly better, and then the fuzzier ones on their belly and closer to their body will help keep them warm. Okay, so there's my varied thrush. I think the legs are maybe a little bit too long, but that's okay. I'm still pretty happy with it. So if you just do some lines and patterns for the feathers, and then I did a little bit of color blending, and I also just used some darker pressure for my, some harder pressure for my darker lines, and then used some lighter pressure with the same color to color it in. I have some nice detail and variation. You can add a background for your bird if you want. So thanks for watching my video. I hope you like this project, and happy bird drawing.